needed. By the sounds of it, great food. Feel free to indulge, Mr. Cameraman. Anyway, I have an introduction of board members. I'll start with you, Linda, as board clerk.
Linda Barrett, clerk.
Steve Warzak, representative from ACSD and vice chair.
Sharon Meacham, Workforce Development.
John Markowski, Workforce Investment Board, resident of Bridport.
Rebecca Goulet, Business Manager, Hannaford Career Center.
Nick Colston from Shoreham, representing ACSD.
Hi, I'm Christina Macklin from North Ferrisburg, representing Addison Northwest School District.
Dan Rozignol, Northwest Addison at large.
Will Biederman, Middlebury, Workforce Investment Board.
Nicole McTavish, Superintendent and Director.
Kim Farnham, the chairman from, let's see, live in New Haven, but I'm the Mount Abraham Community at Large member. And Wendy's turn as she comes and sits down.
Wendy Pratt, the Assistant Director here.
Teresa Alexander, Administrative Assistant.
Steve, introduce yourself.
Steve Rennie from Starksboro, representing MAUSD.
And Tricia.
Tricia Allen, ACSD Board Rep.
Thank you. And we have some visitors.
Yes, I'm Katie Hill, I'm the Engineering and Architecture Instructor, also resident of Ferrisburg, just here to listen.
Thank you. So,
Hi, Fred Kenny, Executive Director of the Addison County Economic Development Corporation. And we also convene the, what is the WIB, the Workforce Investment Board for Addison County, the Addison County Workforce Alliance.
thank you. Okay, next up is the approval of the agenda as listed.
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Second, Bill. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? And motion passes. Public comment on the agenda, items only. Anybody have a comment on that?
There's no public online, I take it. Right?
Right. So, this is, if you have a comment regarding the current agenda, there is a comment period at the end of the meeting. If you have something to let them know. Thank you. Seeing none, we'll move on to correspondence and donations. You want to talk about it?
Right. We have it down in the discussion item, but we do have two donations, which are fantastic. One from Good Road Lumber and one from, for some small engines. And just to streamline and also be very transparent, we've put together a little memo. And what we're doing, what we will continue to do, we'll refine the memo. But right now, we just say what it is, who it's from, what the fair market value is. And then we have also been providing a letter to the donees so that they can use it as a tax thing. So hopefully that will help everybody, and we're certainly very grateful for the donations.
And that's in your packet, I
Yes.
believe. Right. Interpreted. Okay. Consent agenda as written. We're looking at some minutes, monthly accounts payable, and report to the board and the various committees that exist. Any question on any of those items? If so, then we'll pull them, but otherwise, I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second from
Second it.
Dan. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, motion passes. So I also have a presentation from David, and we're very early. Thank you. So I'm going to skip over him. He's downstairs, the Makery's in operation tonight doing registration. So when he comes up. Okay, thank you. Rebecca, how long is your presentation? A little while?
Shouldn't be that long.
A little want to exclude Dave. He's been working very hard and doing a lot of our grant work. And any new grants that we can find, seems to be his talent. And then obviously the Makery and the Teen Makery, which he's expecting about 10 people this evening, I think he said. So we had the awards this morning for breakfast,
We did.
and it looked like it was pretty full.
We had 4 board members, so thank you very much.
And Steve said they moved it to the theater room.
Yes, the Black Box Theater, so we could accommodate more people.
So how many do you think you had in attendance, including parents? A few?
50?
Wow,
Mhm.
that's great. That's fabulous.
It was.
There was a lot more room and there were a lot more people.
Of course. I happened to be here for a meeting the other day when the group was serving the seniors that come in usually once a month, and there's such a demand for them to come. I think there was some negotiating going on whether or not they may have it for 2 times for the month. But the seating's a little less than it has been in the past, and they obviously serve very good food, so it's popular.
Sorry we're so early.
That's okay. I warned him that we might be.
Not a problem.
And I would say that awards breakfast is a great opportunity. And there is another one tomorrow. It was only half of the stuff today, so.
7:45 a.m. if anybody would like to.
Yes.
go.
So you can be downstairs. So go ahead when you're ready.
Hello, everyone. I'm David Roberts. I am, you guys all know me. I am interim Makery coordinator until we hire someone, and I'm here today to present some information on the adult and the teen Makeries, 2 separate programs. Next page. Oh, the PowerPoint. This. You had it up?
I have it up separately, but can we share the screen?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Thanks, Steve.
Yes.
So, I want to get organized here. So our program vision is to, the Makery in general is a place for people to imagine, experience, network, collaborate, and create for personal and professional growth. We really want to engage the larger community, invite people into the Career Center, and allow people to get to know the Career Center, the people, and the facilities. And I think our view is that this, both adult and teen, is really a marketing and outreach tool for the Career Center. It adds value, it creates goodwill for the community and the Career Center. So we see it as a win-win for everybody. Program details. So on the left, the Adult Makery, we're open every Thursday, almost every Thursday. We are currently in the sewing and the construction labs. In the past, we have had a computer lab going and have done some the glow forge, that kind of stuff. But right now, we're the sewing lab and construction lab. We're supervised by Makery coordinators. We have professionals who have been vetted, who are friends of the Career Center, who have been background checked, who are in the Makery, who are in the labs, managing anyone who's there. They pay a membership fee, either $7.50 a visit, $50 for a punch card of 10 visits, or an annual membership, $200. We have them sign a release so that they're waiving their rights to sue the Career Center if something happens, and waiving their and taking on their, assuming all the liability of them being here. There's a steering committee that manages the Adult Makery. We meet monthly, and that's made up of Fred Kinney, Dave Cole, Faith Dahlia, John Purcell, and Joy, and the coordinator. And we've been operating since 2017 with a lot of activity, even through COVID. We had some really great activity in online classes and that kind of stuff. The Team Bakery is a little newer. We've been running for about 2 years. It starts at 3:15 and goes to 5 p.m. on Thursdays. It is for high school aged kids. We 16 and up, and we do. Actually, that's not true. 16 and up if you're in the construction lab. If you're in high school and you're 14 or 15, you can go to the sewing lab. We serve food. We usually have 15 to 18 kids every week. We try to transport people from Mount Abe, Virgins, and transport them back and forth. And we have seen some really cool interactions, students really building confidence, building friendships, mentorships, et cetera. And we're also managed by a steering committee, which is myself and Nancy Gannett from the counseling service. Next is the benefits. Any questions so far? So Adult Bakery, I think we promote the Career Center vision, mission and vision. We expose adult learners to the Career Center programs and adult classes. We provide opportunities for economic output, which further strengthen the local economy. The Team Bakery creates a safe space for high school students. Last couple of years, we had a large contingent of LGBTQ identified students in the sewing lab, and I think it's really important to offer a safe space for them. So that's been pretty remarkable. Exposes students to the Career Center. We had a student that was in the Team Bakery that is in the industrial fabrication class now, and I think it's a really a great opportunity to recruit students and allow students just to come in and get comfortable with the building. And it allows students to develop technical skills outside of their comfort zone. It was amazing. We did a project last year where students created a metal table with a wood tabletop, and it was quite remarkable to see them develop these skills and be in a welding lab where they had never been in a welding lab, and use the plasma cutter and use saws and tools and jigsaws and all of that. It was quite incredible, and if I had pictures I would show you, but some of the tables that kids made were remarkable. So next slide. Yep, that's it. Adult Bakery financial and liability structure. The Bakery has a checking account here at the Career Center. I think we have about 14,000, maybe a little less now. The Adult Bakery pays its expenses through that checking account. Rebecca's team pays our expenses for us and just, uses that account to fund the coordinator and any expenses. We have each member sign a waiver, and the bakery coordinator reports to the director of adult ed, or assistant director of adult ed, and that person also approves expenses. For the bakery, the Team Bakery, last year we received a $12,000 grant. I'm a grant writer, so we got a $12,000 grant from Porter that was 2 years ago that allowed us to function through the end of last semester, end of last year. Not 2023, but the end of last school year, May of 2023. And then now we have a $30,000 grant from the United Way. It's $10,000 a year for 3 years, and we feel like that's a sufficient amount of money for us to operate very easily. The counseling service is the fiscal agent for that grant. The reason is because the Career Center doesn't qualify because they're not technically a nonprofit, so we needed a nonprofit to be the fiscal agent. The Assistant Director of Adult Ed approves the team makery expenses that are incurred. And CSAC is managing all of the grant reporting and that kind of thing. Monthly financial statements. Any questions so far? So highlights, this is just some highlights. I'll read a few of these. This is from Faith, mainly in the sewing lab. But some things that have happened, Ned had fabric his wife bought from Africa, and he made some clothes. Dave repaired, upcycled, and repurposed old jeans. Middlebury student from Japan brought in silk and made a dress. Tom, who's actually here tonight, made a sail cover for his sailboat and cushions for his boat. Tonight he's working on a cover for his, what do you call those things? Generator, outdoor generator. I think this is not in here, but on the team maker, I mentioned the tables. Things like, we had a kid who is into Dungeons and Dragons, and he had a metal armor that he made a stand for. And he made a cover for his sword, and different things. I think it's we had kids making hats. We had a young lady make her prom dress. The kid that tragically passed away last year was in the sewing lab, and she made a cape. She was making a cape when she died. And the rest of the team finished that cape and sewed buttons on it and gave it to her father. So, I mean, it's really a powerful group, the Team Makery especially. These are vulnerable kids. These are kids who are not playing basketball, not in cheerleading, not in all the different clubs. This is a safe space for them to come and be themselves and be creative and find acceptance. Okay, that's my presentation. I also included an operating agreement that we're going to sign with the Makery and the Team Makery. I'm glad to answer any questions on that. And I ask for your support.
Hi. So it seemed like the glass onion, is that used to just serve the students, or are there Team Makery students in the kitchen?
No. We're using that as a meeting place for the Team Makery. We use that as a gathering place, and we serve food, pizza in there. One of the feedbacks that we had last year was like, we're tired of pizza, so we're looking for other food. And I was chatting with Jill, and Jill in culinary is interested in catering some. So that might be an opportunity for her to cater some of the food for us, which would be great. And we have a budget to be able to pay for that.
So it's Jill and the culinary students that are in the kitchen, not Makery students?
It's the Team Makery. They're not. No one's in the kitchen. We're
Okay.
just using the dining room,
Okay.
or the tables and chairs.
Okay.
We may do a basic cooking class with the teens. That's something that people have asked us. Is some of these teens don't really have a great home life, so like, hey, let's teach them how to make pasta and boil eggs and scramble eggs and that kind of stuff. So we may try to do some of that. If we do that, we'll coordinate with Jill and the instructors to make sure that, and the administration to make sure that everything is good and that we've got all the permissions and coverage that we need.
Cool. Any other questions?
Is the coordinator position being posted right now? What are you looking for?
It is posted. We have we've got 5 folks that have applied. We're going to do 3 interviews next week.
Cool.
So I think we've got a couple of good candidates. So it should be, and it's a 12-hour, 10 to 12-hour position, split between the Team Makery and the Makery.
Good. Great.
Steve? I don't know if this is a question for you or if this is a question for the administration. I noticed in several parts of the presentation that you were saying that no outside group is responsible for the liability. It's all going to be handled through the Career Center. What does that do for our liability coverage, the cost of our insurance, and things of that nature? So it's almost like it's one of the hidden costs here that I'm trying to get at.
Good question. So when we first started talking about all of this, we did run this through our insurer. At this time, we do not believe that it will affect our insurance rates.
Okay.
In both the Teen Makery and the Makery agreements, though, there is a line that says if it should cause our rates to go up, then that cost will be borne by the programs.
Okay.
So we do have that as our safety clause. But we currently, since we are serving community, which we do through adult ed already, and teenagers, which we also have in our school, they're the same age groups, doing the same activities. We think we're gonna not have any additional cost.
Okay.
But we're covered if we do.
So short term, we don't have to do a rider or anything?
Not right now.
Great.
But what we will do is, should the board decide to accept the agreements tonight, we will send those over to our insurer and then follow up with any additional actions.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
I just want to say thank you for making these amazing spaces available to the public and the Teen Makery. It sounds like awesome work. So thank you.
I'll preface that by saying I'm being paid for the Makery work. The Teen Makery work is volunteer for me, and I've been doing that for several years, and it is a passion to help these kids find connections and a path that get them excited about work and learning. So, thank you.
The Middlebury College has started a makery too. Has that had any impact on?
No, they've had a makery for years. It's been there, and I think they're just, because I've seen some recent, I mean, every once in a while we get a Middlebury College student, but not very often. So I don't really think they're competition at all. I think if anything, they complement us because Middlebury College students have a place to go that is on campus, and they have equipment there. So I don't see an impact.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Nicole?
Just a comment, I'm really thankful. When this all first came to fruition, you remember the conversations we had at the board. And it's been a lot of work for the steering committee to get to this place where we had a professional operating agreement, we had professional agreements. We have a makery person that's now gonna be actually employed and in charge. It's been a lot of work for a bunch of volunteers to make this happen for kids and community. So I'm just really grateful for all of the hard work that's been done and just the stick-to-itiveness with the team. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for your support. We really appreciate it. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
And if you guys want a tour after, feel free, after the board meeting, is just poke around in the construction lab or sewing lab, just come in and say hello.
Okay.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next on the discussion section, we had a discussion already about the donation, so I feel like we have to repeat that when somebody has a question. And we'll move on to the CTE reports and recommendations from AOE.
Are we doing the budget
Your budget.
Yeah.
Yes, Rebecca. Sorry. I know you really were, I go right by you, but.
There was a link put on the PDF, I don't know, this was sent out, the agenda was sent out before the PDF was linked, but I can certainly share it.
Yeah, it's not linked down here.
No, it wasn't linked,
Oh,
but I can share it when we get there.
that's okay, I can follow up there.
Well, I can certainly share it afterwards as well. So we've been talking about the budget all fall, and we're kind of at the point where tonight we're gonna ask the board to adopt a budget, and just kind of wanted to give another overview of where we ended up, and go through a couple things, and answer any questions for you. So Patrice, if you don't mind going to the next slide.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay.
Hold on.
Hold on, I'm sorry. So you're very accustomed to seeing this type of data that we've produced in the past. This is the fiscal year 25 proposed general budget fund, so it just covers the things that would be expected to be paid by our sending schools. It doesn't include like the Perkins grant or any of the other makery or adult ed. This is strictly the tuition portion of our running the operation. And much like every year, our biggest chunk is salaries and benefits, just around 67% this year. And then our debt service is around 15%. So approximately 81% of this budget is already fixed when we start building it. And then we have the other small things like dues and fees and supplies and the things that we need to run the organization. And it's very similar to what we had in fiscal year 24. The percentages on the salaries and benefits are a little lower than last year. That's because as the budget rises, those numbers fluctuate.
Healthcare sits where?
In the benefits.
Thank you.
Any questions on this one? So this is kind of a new format, and in talking with Nicole and the rest of the administrative team, one of the things that we haven't been able to do here in the past is to see how much a particular program costs us without having to pull and pick apart different things. All the salaries were lumped together, all the benefits were lumped together. So in addition, with the new system that we're bringing on, we're going to be able to do this much more with ease, and then every instructor will actually be able to see their actual budget. And so if the board were to say, how much does it cost to run construction, it'll be easy to say. The other thing that we'll do with this information is we will come up with our indirect rate, which is for everything outside of instruction, like for administration, the building. So we can actually see a true cost for each program and how many FTEs we need to support it to be, to break even and be profitable in that realm. So I'm excited to bring this to the staff. I think it'll be really good in the spring when we can roll this out, and everybody have access to all their own budgets, and it'll be a great tool for us to use at the leadership.
Was this shown at the sending schools?
No, this is something that's new.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Nick?
So just, I've got a couple of questions. The board of directors, are we really spending that amount of?
In that particular line item, it includes things like the cost of the audit. It includes things like the HRA management fees, the COBRA management fees, some of the interest for the short-term debt. There's professional development in there. It's actually, that number is lower than it used to be because the actual expenses for the HRAs and the HSAs originally all lived there. And in this, the way we've done it this year, I've pulled that out and put them in each program so they're all expensed properly.
Okay.
Isn't that also where liability insurance and
Parts of them, yeah.
lie? So it's.
Now, these numbers are unburdened, though? You haven't put the burden of everything else tied into it?
Well, everything in that budget is broken out, so you'll see maintenance. What I haven't done yet is like figure out how much of the maintenance expense to give each program, and that's something we'll be working on.
Okay.
But this is the entirety of the general fund budget, including all those things.
Yes, including the interest on
Yep.
on the bonds. Right?
Exactly, the under debt service.
And this is something that Becca and I really want to be able to do, both for us and for the board. And this is our first shot at it. It will get more mature as we learn more. But if you just pull a program, let's say culinary, for example, that cost will be the total ownership of that program. So it will be the instructor's salary, the instructor's benefits, any supplies, the propane for the stoves, any trips that we send her on for professional development. So it'll be the total cost of ownership for that program. So what we'll eventually be able to get to is the revenue next to the program for each program. So you'll be able to look at the enrollment, which is then translated into revenue, next to the cost of the program, and that will help inform decisions that the board is able to make as we move forward over time. But again, this is our very first shot at this. I'm sure we will learn places that things are supposed to live that they're currently not in, so.
During the budget process this year, one of the things we really tried to do is to really look at it. So like, some software lived in IT, some software lived in the programs, and so when we looked at all those different softwares, we're like, is this software for the greater good of the organization? That would be in IT. But then some of our programs, like Auto, they have, a program for their databases and things, so that cost really belongs to Auto, and we really tried to start parsing that out, and as Nicole said, there's gonna be things that we're gonna still have to figure out as we go. We tried to break out the best we could, knowing what we know right now.
So preliminarily, are there any surprises or red flags in this process so far?
It's early on. Until we start seeing what the enrollment and
Yeah.
admissions are, it's gonna be hard to like say if there are any red flags. But at least we have a good starting point to know where we are, and I'm excited to be able to play around with that.
Yeah, that was kind of my question in terms of the number of students per program and the cost per program. You expect some things to cost a little bit more.
Sure.
As anything out of
Yeah,
whack.
some programs cost more to run just because of the nature of the industry.
Sure.
And yeah, it'll be an exciting new way to look at things. And I think between just having this at a baseline and then with the new system, we're really going to be able to do a lot more. And I think it'll be good information for everybody.
Do you think it'll help support the cost of tuition, in terms of arguments and cost per student? I don't think people understand a lot of this, like what it really costs to do all this.
No, I don't think people do. They don't understand the funding mechanisms of it either. I think what it really will do is, as Nicole said, it'll help drive decisions made by the board, whether programs are feasible and the programs that aren't feasible are the ones that are driving up our tuition rates, so we have to figure out how to balance that best.
Yeah, because it looks like welding, if we got more people into welding.
Well, in welding right now, that's not a program, that's
Right.
the expense for welding, and that's one of those ones that'll be sprinkled over a few different accounts.
Oh, okay.
But we do it all in one program because it's really hard to determine, like, oh, you use this and you use that, so we take that and break it out as a percentage.
Okay.
And this isn't to say that eventually when we will be able to, within the year, we'll be able to get the expenses for a program next to the revenues for a program. That's not to say that there's a value around that, right? It's the determination may be that you want to run the program anyway because of the economic value to the community or to the county, but I still want you to have the information to have the discussion, right?
Steve?
Is there, is it simply that this is the new display, or is there a difference between industrial design and fabrication in the left column and in the industrial design in the right column?
Because some of them are pre-tech, and that's just how they're broken out right now. And as we
Okay.
move forward with a new system, we'll be renaming some of these
I
as
see.
we pull it together.
Because they're the same numbers and the same name, I was wondering if there was if that's two different programs, or is that?
Oh, that's,
Simply
I'm sorry,
replication.
you're right, that is a duplication.
Oh,
on top
Lack of a
just-
carriage return.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah,
Got it.
sorry about that.
Steve, you just saved us some
I-
money.
There you go. No, the bottom line's still the same.
Yeah. I thought it was still the same.
So the next slide is about revenue, which is always important to try to understand. And this is just the general fund revenue. It doesn't include, like I said, the Perkins or anything like that. And so the tuition assessment is what we would charge out to our sending schools based on the information that we currently have. And we'll talk about that a little further down. Obviously, the interest earnings, it's not great, but we get a little bit. We are predicting that we're gonna need $130,000 of our fund balance to move over. Last year it was 275, so we were able to cut that down quite a bit, and we hope to get that to 0 for next year. And then when we talk about the state-based education payment, that's the portion that the Vermont AOE sends us for students. And how that's calculated is it's 87% of the state base, or about $11,000 and change for each student. The tuition assistant grant is 35% of the base education rate, and that comes out to be about $4,500 per student. So that's all based on the FTE and the base education rate. And then just going down, we get some money back for some of the transportation that we provide, like for field trips and co-ops and things of that nature. And then the next few lines are the salary support grants, and those are based on, they'll do a survey in the spring asking what we anticipate those salaries to be, and then they have a formula they run. So I did keep them pretty level, just moved them up a tiny bit. Miscellaneous income, that's things that come in like if we get rebates or facility rentals, if we were charging for something like that, or if we sell a piece of equipment or something else that we can put in the general fund. And then the indirect rate is going to be new on this budget this year. That is the money that we can take from any grants that we receive. We apply for a rate, and for this year it was 7.45%, and we'll apply again in April. And that money comes off the top of a grant for the services of the administration of the grant. And once that happens, we can put it in the general fund and use that money as we see fit to cover our expenses.
Just one thing which I learned coming to Vermont, you see the salary support for 3 specific positions. Those are positions that are required in statute for us to have, and so I assume that they felt, since they're requiring that, they have to help with the salary so that we're able to have them. So that doesn't cover, obviously, the whole cost, but it does help support those 3 positions.
Is there any possibility to include this in the roadshow? Because I think this would be a big thing to be able to show the sending districts that only half of the money that's spent here comes from tuition. And that what you're asking for is much more reasonable than it seems.
The cost is double tuition, yeah, which is.
Yeah, right.
If somebody were to complain, they go, half is.
Right.
from the
We're
state.
only asking you
Yeah.
what we need from
The
you
state, yeah.
because.
The only issue about, and we can certainly do an estimated one for what shows in the future, is that a lot of this information doesn't come, like the base education rate doesn't come until later, so it's all gonna be estimated.
You mean the state doesn't give you all that information early? Like,
No, I'm still, like, we're still waiting on the actual frozen FTEs. So we can certainly work on that for next year and make it estimated or
yeah.
something like that, but yeah, I think it is good to explain it this way, and hopefully it's helpful.
I think it would be.
So Rebecca, we also have, don't we have some other grants that are in process?
Yeah.
Where will those sit?
They'll sit in their own fund as a grant. They will
And that'll be a
commingled.
separate revenue?
Correct.
Okay.
Separate revenue and expenses. The only thing that we will get from those is that indirect cost for the administration of those grants. That'll come in the general fund.
But didn't we show grants in the revenue section
They used to,
last year?
they showed Perkins,
Yes.
but Perkins really is a grant and it needs to be shown separately. That's how the auditors will break it out.
Yeah. But we have been showing it as
Had
revenue.
been shown in the past against those
And
grant
there were a
expenses.
couple of other grants that were shown as revenue too.
Yes, there was the innovation grant, which we have
Right.
not received this
Yeah.
year, so we didn't include it. And sometimes those grants, we don't know until after the budget cycle's done, but
Yeah. So there is potential,
there is other potential.
upside,
There is, yeah.
yeah.
But generally, when you get those grants, you also incur additional expenses that have to be offset by the grant money, so it doesn't really affect the general fund budget.
Yeah,
Yeah, they,
depends on the timing.
well, the grants, you almost always have the grants don't ever supplant, right? It's always, you're buying new stuff.
Mm.
So it's just increased revenue but increased expense.
Mm.
Yeah.
So is the annual process that you've got to sit down and do a bunch of estimates on things you think might come in?
And, you never really know what's gonna happen until the legislature ends, right? They could change anything between now and May. This is based on what we know at this moment in time. And if they do something crazy, then we have to just adjust.
And those of you in our sending districts, there's a way more guessing game going on there right now.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's pretty ridiculous.
I remember those days, and you had to make a lot of assumptions, and especially calculating tax rates, because you just never know what they're gonna set it at the end, so. It's always important to say, this is our best guess at this time based on the information we have at this present moment. This is just an overview of where we were last year, where we are this year, what the increase is. It was a 9.33% increase year to year. Part of that slide missing?
There it goes.
And I just tried to break it down this way to help explain to people too, and I think this may be helpful as part of the roadshow in the future. What the tuition is, what we actually get from the state to support it, and what we have to get from the schools. And you'll see that the increase from the state is very minimal. It doesn't keep up with inflation as we might expect. So that makes it a little tougher on our end of the revenue side of it.
That's a big increase.
It's big.
On the school side, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, could you go back? It's like a 25% increase.
Sharice, can you go back to that screen?
Yes, hold on. That one?
Yep.
From 16 to, so 4,000 on 16 is
25.
25%.
25,
They're gonna be able to, you know, I just read in my tax thing in the Addison Independent, they talked about taxes for like a whole page and never really said anything about what our taxes are gonna be. Quite remarkable.
It's not gonna be good.
It's not gonna be pretty.
Not
gonna be great
The
anywhere.
CLAs are so out of whack, I mean, there's all these influences going on.
Our preliminary calculations right now have our towns paying somewhere between 20 and 35% increase in property taxes.
Oh, whoa.
And that's all driven by CLA.
So that was, yeah, somewhere in the article, I mean, it was really unclear. There was a whole article on it. So what's the bottom line?
It's extremely complex, and I'm not sure that
Yeah.
the journalists really understand what's going on. It's not their fault. It takes a long time and a lot of work, and it doesn't fit into a soundbite.
Any other questions? Thank you.
But the enrollment piece is playing with that, so we're gonna discuss that.
Right, so the enrollment, and we'll be able to give you an update on this year's enrollment, but enrollment is the critical driver of all of this.
Yes.
Because as enrollment goes, so our budget is fixed, so the amount of money we need to collect is divided by the number of students we have.
Right.
So the more students we have, the less each one costs.
Right.
That's what all of our focus really is right now, is on in driving enrollment. And
Yeah.
it's not just to drive enrollment for the budget, it's how many students are not taking part or having the opportunity to experience this institution, right? Even if they don't want to go on to be a CTE completer, to have the opportunity to experience one of these courses. Because most of the things that we teach here also are life skills. Some, fixing your car, or being able to build some stairs, or, making a beautiful dish for a loved one. These are life skills as well. So our goal, and we say it aloud a lot, is that every single high school student has a chance to take one class here.
But the enrollment number is what's driving the 25%,
The enrollment number is, yep.
and that's the answer to that.
Right, the answer for us is to have increased enrollment. We are under-enrolled given our staffing levels right now.
Right.
Judd?
Imagining a crazy world where you could just maximize every single thing and not have too many students in one, approximately how many more students do you feel like you could serve?
I would have to, sit down and look through the numbers right now, but we could serve twice as many easily.
Okay, there's
Yeah.
a good enough answer for me. Great. Yep. You don't
And that would
bother
be
me
without
that.
overburden. Now, that's not every program, I don't think I could wedge another kid in Lisa's class, but, but we have plenty of capacity in our classes. And there is some statutory language that kicks in if you have more than 16 students, you are required to have a teaching assistant, which we love to have anyway. So we have plenty of capacity.
Thank you. Oh, Judd's got another question.
And this may be now off topic, so feel free not to answer it or move it to another part. If we are seeing that we have a lot more capacity, and it seems like that's a pretty standard thing on our 6-year average, is there some appetite to try to get younger high schoolers in here, 9th and 10th graders, rather than just really focus on 11th and 12th grade?
Right, I'll speak a little bit more about that at the new programs, but that is, we have really three big strategies, right? We need to do some high-level marketing, flyers to families, speaking directly to parents and kids about what programs we have here. Wendy has spent an enormous amount of time working directly with the sending school counselors, listening to their feedback, eliminating barriers kid by kid. We also have made a big change in our admissions process, simplifying the application process, eliminating barriers there. The other place that we're putting a lot of focus right now is on the 10th grade year. There's language in Vermont statute that allows 10th graders to take technical courses. We haven't offered that as a pathway. The language is a little bit specific that they do have to be, I can't remember the exact words, but essentially it's mature and on track to graduate. And what we're going to use are in the report cards of our sending schools, they have we call them hows, but the things that talk about citizenship and work habits and things like that, we're going to use those and the student grades as indicators, but open the door to 10th graders who do want to take technical classes. And then obviously really improving the marketing to our incoming 9th graders to get the survey experience with our pre-technical classes, because those are a really awesome way for kids to do some exploratory.
Great.
And they fit really nicely within the 9th and 10th grade schedules.
Excellent, thank you.
Right.
And just to give you a little bit more data, we have 67 current 9th graders, 10th graders 34, 11th graders 95, and 12th graders 69. So you can see, especially
so many young people.
Especially that 10th grade is where, you know, we really feel like we could increase that number quite a bit.
Great, thank you very much.
How's the scheduling conversations going? Because I know that that's one of the main barriers for students being able to take. And don't know if you noticed that Caitlin was at the breakfast this morning, so.
Middlebury's been doing a fantastic job trying to work with us, and I think they have a proposal going to their board soon, but everything that they have been talking about includes meeting our schedule, so our 2-hour blocks, and so every student can fit that into their schedule, you know, as long as their credits match up. And then they have a chance to take what they're gonna call a skinny, which will give them another credit where they might not have had one this year. So we feel like the relationship between that school and ours has strengthened so much, and it feels really good. They really wanna send students here.
Good.
She was at the breakfast too. Right?
She was. She's shown up at everything. She was at our open house. Caitlin has been a wonderful partner. That reminds me, one other thing that we're trying to do to eliminate barriers. Our students have told us, and we experienced in the add drop period at the beginning of this year, that English is the biggest class by the credit barrier, because students need to have 4 credits. So we don't know if we'll get enough enrollment, but we have put in our course catalog a technical writing class that students can take during the lunch period, that Eric St. John is, if we have enough students, is willing to teach, because he is a certified English teacher, so that they can take their PAC class and take their English credit at lunch. So we'll see if it flies. We don't know, but we're going to give it a shot.
That'd be huge. That's awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
So we ended up not replacing Penelope when she left?
Right, so because we did used to offer that.
Yeah.
So we had the 2 classes. The early morning one was for culinary specifically, because that worked out for the full day program. Everybody else in the half day program could take that one that Nicole was just talking about.
Okay.
So the position was, I believe it was posted just as is, but what we were able to get is Jillian teaching just that morning session, and she couldn't do any more. Although we would love her to, because she's wonderful.
She is.
So it seems like we're getting a little far afield here from
Sorry.
I have a bigger question. This budget makes some assumptions about salary increases. And there's always, this is always a conundrum, because we have to set these numbers early. We have to agree to a warning number today. And there's a possibility that that negotiation may not end up where the current salary assumptions are in our budget. And I just wanted to throw that out there so people can discuss what our options are under that circumstance.
We're facing a similar situation, and I think all the sending schools are facing a similar situation. We are in the middle of contract negotiations as well. And probably the most sage advice I heard on that was you can budget, but you can't predict. And so what we pass with the voters, we are trying to, as accurately as we can, represent what we think those negotiations are going to end up with. But there is nothing that says, if it goes to arbitration, we don't even get to pick. The arbitrator picks what the rate is. And so you can't agonize over that. You just do the best that you can to negotiate, and you try to be as truthful as you can. But I don't know, to say that we put extra in the budget, or that we hold up the budget on an unknown that we don't have any control over, I don't know. I don't think that's terribly purposeful. I understand the dilemma that you're in, Steve, and I'm in the similar situation across the street, but we're doing the best job we can, and I don't think, I don't know, I don't think it should paralyze the budget process, frankly.
No, I'm not suggesting that we, bring everything to a screeching halt.
Okay.
I wanted everybody to be aware of that situation, that's all. And the fact that, should that number come in higher than what we currently expect in the budget, there's some kind of a ramification budget-wise. Because I'm assuming we can't go back to the voters for more money.
Right.
But budget and spending are two different things.
Nicole?
I think what Steve is, just being transparent, is if we exceed the number that's budgeted, then there is, you've seen that budget, it's very small and it's very close. It would mean we cut something. We can't both raise the salaries and have everything that was shown there. So something will be cut.
Bill?
Yeah, so, my question comes back because I think she's really good at hiding money. Is there anything that's not spoken for yet in the budget?
No,
And I don't
it's-
mean hiding money in a bad way.
No, it's tight. I mean,
Okay,
And,
we
right.
have a number, we have a number from negotiations that I was asked to put in the budget, and that's what I did. And, you always have a little here and there if someone takes a different benefit plan, or, we have a new hire, I had to estimate, like, what I thought we were gonna hire, but this budget's so tight, there's no room to hide stuff.
okay.
Right.
Yeah, when we're talking about not having a budget surplus to move over, that's your wiggle room.
Right, and the reason that we made an intentional choice to move the budget surplus, all of it, what we have, the $130,000, into the tuition rate, because it was going to exceed $30,000. And we are already the highest tuition rate by a significant amount in the state. And so I would have preferred to spend that $130,000 on program, but we can't. I don't think it's the right thing to do, to ask when we have it, to not put it toward the tuition rate. That's why I put it there.
Steve, this has been a great discussion, but I really feel we need to move along in the agenda. And Tricia, you have any questions?
No, taking it all in, but thank you so much for going over it.
Thank you.
Inform.
So, under discussion items, the donations to Goodrich and Small Engines, we've also discussed that already. Next is the CTE report and recommendations from AOE, which has been a very lively discussion, and it's in your packet, but I'm not sure if we're gonna do.
I'm not gonna go through it, you have it in your packet. I just wanted to bring it to your attention because this, we keep thinking, is this a real thing or is it not a real thing? So this is back to the discussion about the governance structure and the financial structure of CTEs that is going on in the state. And it certainly seems to be a real thing at this point because Heather Boucher just gave this presentation, which you have, to a set of elected officials. And what was a little disappointing to me is when she, in one of the slides, and I don't know if this was intentional or if she was just trying to save space, I don't know, but on where it talks for options for CTE governance, she only lists 2 of 4 options, right? There are the 2 options listed here, which is the 1 CTE district across the state or coordinated regional centers. There's also option 3, which is leave it alone, or option 4, which is all technical school districts. So neither of those were choices here in the presentation given to the elected officials. So that's still a concern of mine. And while I agree wholeheartedly and yay, in theory, with the idea that we would like to get away from charging or sending school districts money to send kids here, and that we would all love for it to be a block from the state, a block grant from the state. My experience with changing funding systems is they never change without winners and losers. And given the fact that we are the highest tuition rate, I can assure you we would be a loser. So I'm concerned about that too.
Any questions? I think Nicole will keep us abreast of what's going on. She's kept me pretty good. Obviously, funding questions and education in general are a conversation at the State House right now, and it's not a bad thing, but again, we want to make sure we have representation for the type of funding issues that we have in this district, which are a little bit different than the others, and the others, you know, maybe attached to a total supervisory district, whereas we're separate right now. And that's been a good thing so far, especially to having a voice. Any questions? Okay. Next is, Nick has indicated he will be leaving us, and he put it in writing, which is something we haven't done in the past. And in reference to that, I'm going to have a little discussion about board terms. And Christina has just told me that she's going to run again. We thought we were going to lose her. But
Yeah, call me crazy.
Yay.
so I think,
Good for
and
us.
I'm not going to do this now only because I want to keep things moving, but if you are up for re-election or appointment, that is something that the office kind of needs to know. So if you want to send that information in, I appreciate it. And I'm not sure how, for instance, for Jen's does the at-large membership, is it a yearly thing?
Yeah, at their annual meeting,
Right.
Dan has agreed to.
So what you
Call
need
me
to
crazy.
do is,
Yeah, you and I will do it together.
yeah, and you just kind of need to let them, you know, and again, I think the leadership at Mount A's going to change.
Yeah.
The chairman's leaving, so I'll have to let them know, for instance, that I'm interested still in doing it again, if I make that decision. Anyway, so that's just a point of information. The other piece is how we add new members, especially from workforce and so on. We've had different ways of doing it through the years. We've had workforce actually recommend ones to us and so on. So we did some charter research and found out that ultimately we can go ahead and appoint somebody as long as those positions are filled numerically for the amount that we have set up to be members of the board. Now, the process we've never really established, other than putting it out on, you know, Facebook, whatever, to get people that are interested. We've talked about the priorities of the different organizational pieces that are important for us, like agriculture, help me with this part.
Automotive.
Manufacturing.
Manufacturing is, you know, it's a really big thing now. So anyway, we have at point one person who came in, and Mike Giorgio, and expressed his interest. He could not be at this meeting, but I think it might be important that if we also do this, is to bring somebody to the table that is interested and let you have some question and answer time with them. He's already met with Wendy and Nicole. I've met with him prior to, and I think it's just an important piece to be able to ask questions, you know, why are you here? What do you think you can offer the board? And for us to take some time to talk about, and Wendy and Nicole did this, about what your role is. Because I think that gets confusing sometimes when people come in and they have an agenda, or they have some ideas that maybe not part of what their responsibilities are. Conversations about subcommittees, things like that, that, you know, we try and talk about. And how they work and what your job is on those subcommittees. And how some are active right now and some are not. But I think it's helpful to sit and talk to somebody about that, and whether or not they can make the commitment, which is always the biggest piece. Whether it's on Zoom or sitting at the table here. But anyway, so we'll get back to you as we work on that piece a little bit, because I think it's an important part of, you know, how we do things, and we haven't been really clear about that piece in the past. But we did find out from the charter that it is something we can, you know, present somebody if it represents a group that, you know, maybe we're a little short on.
And Kim, who do we present that to? Just this board, or is it some other entity out there that?
The way the charter reads
Yeah.
is we get to decide. So we can also, you know, pursue and as we have done in the past through advertising or whatever the case, or somebody you know.
Yeah.
But also thinking, you know, that we really need to make sure that, you know, manufacturing and some of these other positions are represented. In the past, for instance, 15 years ago, we had people from Bread Loaf, you know, and Steve was, you know, in that group. But it just, and that's a construction thing, but, you know, again, I think it's important that we make sure that we have representation from some of the other, even the newer programs that Nicole's going to talk about a little bit later.
Would the advisory committees be helpful in this process, since they're working with community members? In the
I think so.
different sections,
Yeah.
right?
And I think that's a place to, you know, like you said,
Yeah.
apply to this group, whatever. Anybody I know I've had just, you know, send a resume, a cover letter to Nicole, and then we started the process of, you know, what we're looking at, why, and I mean, Sharon can talk about it that way. But some of us have been out here so long, I don't remember ever doing that, but anyway, yeah, and so on. But thank you, Nick. We will see you probably one more time.
At least.
At least, if not.
Maybe two.
Yeah, maybe two.
What are you gonna do with those extra 2 hours a month?
No, he's gonna go.
Ski.
But before Nick runs away,
Nick?
so Nick, because of your background, do you have anybody that you would like to suggest as a candidate for us to look at?
Actually, he is, explain your representation on the board.
I was
It doesn't work that
I was appointed by ACSD.
Right.
I understand, but he has
So-
a financial background, which is what I'm looking for.
Yeah. No, I don't know who, Steve's the expert on ACSD finances now.
So
He's
what
more
happens
plugged
is,
in than I am.
right, so what happens is the sending schools will approach people or send out their means of attracting, hopefully, the right candidate to come and be appointed. Now, there also are other people around that may have been interested in the past and didn't have an opportunity, and that now can raise. But again, it's an individual board thing, well,
Okay.
Yes,
especially with his position.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's two different kinds of appointments. The sending districts,
Community at large.
community at large. Well, there are ones appointed by the board to serve for the board positions. I think, Christina, you're appointed by your board,
I am.
and
You're
I'm
elected.
appointed by my board, and trying to see anybody else.
Steve Rooney.
Oh, yeah, Steve Rooney. And then there are at-large community members, like, we have to be on our board. And then the at-large community members like Nick, you know, they fill another role. And then there's WIB, which is a totally different thing. So I think WIB is the most squishy, because we don't do the other this board doesn't do the appointments that come from the sending districts. This board does do the WIB, we think, has a role in the WIB stuff. So.
And it's the public that actually nominates the at-large,
Yes.
technically, from
Right.
the floor.
From the floor. And the other part too with Christina and Steve, both Steves, is that they're elected. So they have to go through that process.
Yeah.
And then, and my initial
And Tricia.
interest in the board.
Trisha's the other one that I
also.
wasn't.
Thank you. And then you announce to the board that you're interested in serving on this group. Anyway, so those are the three groups.
There's a hand up.
Can I
Fred's
ask
got a question.
Clarifying question?
Yes.
I understand, I followed the reasoning on the charter and everything, and you, the board directly seeking WIB members. Do you foresee that precluding recommendations from the WIB?
Not at
Or
all.
in addition?
Not
Okay.
at all. Yep. Not at all. And I think it's important that, you know, the public know that, because we do have people that come and are looking at different programs and, you know, new things out there, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the agenda. Any other questions? So the next item, I think we kind of moved into that other way, but process for filling open WIB board positions. I think we've discussed it a little bit here. Obviously, some advertising. I think we have done that in the past. I'm not sure which forms, but whether it was just Facebook or some of the other Addison Independent or whatever, just to get some interest, because there was some times there where we had some open positions for quite a while. Anybody here?
How many positions? Is it one that's open, or two?
Well, it'll be one, it's one now.
One,
but-
okay,
Right. So it's one position at this point.
okay. One position.
So we'll come back to you about, you know, Nicole and I'll toss around about some different things about advertising and so on. And I think we've done some in the past that didn't really help, but we can go ahead and do that. So next on the agenda, I understand, Bill, you came to Nicole, and I just kind of wondered why that didn't go through facilities first. Yes, that was my immediate reaction when I saw it. And, you know, looking at the proposal and how much money this cost already, you know, an updated cost figure I don't think is there. And I'm just kind of wondering if you want to present that and talk to us about it a little bit.
Well, part of it was from doing a lot of these meetings remotely and pretty much not being able to hear anybody down there. Doesn't matter what you guys are saying, you can't hear it if you're from home. It's very difficult to. And I'm actually taking a class across the hallway. And I did a couple classes on the road over there, and it's unbelievable how much better having microphones halfway down the room makes a difference. And so my thought was, is there something we can do? And I first asked facilities and said, do we have any extra equipment? And that didn't really go anywhere. And then I mentioned it to Nicole, and Nicole talked to somebody else and got some proposals. So I was totally out of line, but I was doing it for the right reasons.
Well, again, I think, you know, normally we go to facilities, and that's why we have that committee. So when I heard about it and saw it on the agenda, I was like, what is this? You know, and we obviously have a pretty full agenda.
Yep.
Financially, obviously, we're also pretty tight right now, so
Yep.
to come up with $30,000 to $50,000 right now would be tough.
So
Christina?
our media company that records our meetings mics the whole thing. I mean, I don't know if they're able to do that for us or not, but
Thank you.
that's how we hear.
So that's one way to resolve that issue. I too experienced it not being able to hear, and that end of the room. John?
Is there the ability to use the room across the hall for our board meetings and use that sound system over there? Is that what you meant? You're taking a class that's...
I'm taking a class across the hall, but one of the things that the instructor said is there are times when that classroom is not available.
Right, okay.
And they get thrown in here. And if they have anybody remote, they have the same problem.
Right, okay. So I'm strictly for board meetings, if there was, I don't know what the schedule is, if there is the ability to use it, rather than invest in a whole nother system.
We may be able to get that answer at the end of the meeting. Steve?
One of the things that has come up in policy committee talking about public use of the facilities is what parts of the building do we want to be make available, and what and it came up that this might be a good space for people in the community who want to hold remote meetings. It might, if it turns out, you know, people want to use this, it might actually be a moneymaker. But that's speculation. Because this is one of the lowest risk rooms to give people access to in the facility. And, you know, if, in the age of Zoom and in the age of remote meetings, we might be able to offer something to the community that, just something to consider. When we look
No,
at-
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. The hospital board that I sit on, we're looking for something constantly.
Yeah.
As Sharon can attest to. You know, in a large room like this would accommodate.
Take
the-
care, Fred.
Thank you. And we've had to move all over the county everywhere, and some were horrendous. Because like you said, you couldn't see or, you know, didn't have the equipment.
Right.
Anyway, so it is a thought there. I think I would like probably just go back to facilities and have that conversation there. I agree, because it's all about fees and
Yeah.
liabilities and all the other factors that go along with it. And some of these policies, I think, will probably cover some of that down here in the line.
One thing we haven't looked at, I don't think, is if there's a grant available for
Correct.
updating it either.
Right, any other funding source, exactly. But,
I just started the fire.
yeah, we know, and we're gonna push back, because again, that's why
That's fine.
facilities is here.
Yeah.
And anyway, and go from there. So, anybody else have any other questions regarding that, online or anything? Seeing none, we'll move on. Second reading, we have some policies here, and it looks like different people have been designated to present those. So Steve, first one on public participation.
Yeah, I want to say something about this in general at first. Someone pointed out to me that if we were doing a second reading, that it should be the policy as it would appear in the policy manual and what's been given to you and linked. And what we have been working with are the model policies from VSBA. So I would really, what it basically means is if you look at that linked policy, A21, public participation, it has a whole thing at the beginning, says, this text in the disclaimer should be removed prior to adoption. You know, so technically we should clean this up before we do a second reading on it, but I don't know what the board's pleasure is, because
I mean, it really should have all of the school district's name in it.
yes.
Okay.
And
You know,
and
as
the
you're
other
gonna
things,
adopt it, it should look official.
my fault, because we have been working with this in policy, and I didn't even think that we needed a camera-ready version to present to the board. So that is my bad on all three of these, but I don't know if you want to table this for next meeting.
Sounds like we need to, all three of these
Yeah.
policies?
Because I
in
think
that
all three of
category?
those are presented that way.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I would
unless you
second
wanna
that.
adopt them as is and know that moving forward, we do it
Right.
in the new way of making sure it's camera ready and has all the names. 'Cause
So Steve's on a motion?
Yeah, I mean, I would move that we table the second readings for all three of those policies
Okay.
until the next meeting when they can be presented as they would appear in the policy manual.
And Steve Rooney seconded?
So,
Yep.
yeah, and I do have a question, if that's all right.
Sure.
So we've seen these once, they were warned once already.
Yes.
I do believe there was I remember making a comment about B22. The VSBA language is written as if this was a regular K-12 school in terms of the chain of command. So they talk about if you don't get relief from the person you have a grievance with, you go to the principal, and then you go to the superintendent. So just some, that should be probably tweaked to follow our chain of command. That's the only sort of comment I remember making the first time this came out.
Is that addressed?
Other than that,
Steve?
I'm not sure. Christina,
it's
do you
still
remember?
Yeah,
raw
I don't remember
VSBA.
us discussing that
We
actually,
didn't.
Steve. That
I
was
don't
our
think we
bad.
did.
That probably should switch to superintendent, right? Or
Yeah.
is there a chain of
Or,
command?
or,
Yeah. Anyway,
or
we should
describe
have it here.
it as, director,
Right.
superintendent.
Right.
Right. Yeah, sorry.
These all look like,
Sorry
they're all
about that.
still raw VSBA language.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded. Nick,
Yeah,
discussion?
I'll second it.
All right, so it's been seconded again.
Mhm.
Steve Steve already seconded it.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
I do
thank
have
you.
a question.
And now we have a question from Nick. Go ahead, Nick.
So I thought in the minutes of your committee, you were gonna table the security camera one. And I did see that in the VSBA weekly update, they have some changes that they're looking at making. So,
In the last,
So we should look at that again, because this is 2019.
Yeah.
That is on here.
yeah,
so they've updated it again?
I think they have. I think there's
Okay.
a recent update.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan, would you be willing to look at that again?
I'll give it a try, go on the VSBA site. see if
Yeah, I can
find
show you
it.
how to do that.
Might be a good exercise for me to try to figure out how to.
Sure, sure.
Or you can
If I
get
can, I'll let you know,
Okay.
Or Dan, you can get that weekly letter. It's much easier.
the weekly letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do, I try to wade through that, it's
It's on about page 8.
page 8 of the weekly letter. Jeez.
Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, I have one more issue.
Go ahead, Steve.
Kim, I just wanted to bring up. So VSBA, their system, I think, once you get past the 20 series, they start, they're either recommended policies or policies to be considered.
Yeah.
Ahead of that, they're mandated. You know, any earlier numbers. And I'm curious as to whether or not, as part of looking at these, we want to decide whether or not we actually want to adopt them at all. Is that a decision that's been made at the committee level and is being brought forward sort of by default by the fact that it's now in front of us?
So what so the idea was that when we looked at, as people that were on the committee before remember, last year, in order to streamline what our policy manual looked like, all previous policies were sunset, and a slate of, I think, 35 policies was adopted to be the only policies for the board, and most of those were the required policies from VSBA. This was an attempt to say, do we want policies on these other issues? And so we thought that, well, I mean, frankly, I sat down and said, if we're gonna put something in here, we should have a policy, because we don't have a policy anymore, about public comment at board meetings, and about public complaints about personnel, and about security cameras, because we have security cameras. So we just kind of said, let's start with these, because they seem to be the most critical, and then Nicole came to us and said the public use of the facilities is the overriding policy that we need to be examining right now. So we were intending to do more than these three. What we decided to do is stop, because we had already been pretty far down the road on adopting these three policies. And everything has been put on hold as far as other policies or new ones that we want to look at until we get the facilities policy squared away. That is a very big lift, and it's probably going to take a while. We'll probably report on that maybe in the next 2 months as to where we stand, or what our thinking is about how to move forward with that, because it's been an issue, and we really don't have a policy that covers, you know, how the board is reacting to these requests from the community to use our facilities, and what does that look like. So the short answer to your question is, well, we started with these because we thought we needed them, and that's why they're being presented to the board. And the short answer to your question is, no, you don't have to adopt any of them.
No, and I think I apologize, but we may have actually covered my question back when we were first warned. I just wanted the board to understand that that the way that these things are set up by the VSBA, and that in bringing them when they're recommended or for consideration and not mandated, that begs the question to the board when you first bring them up. Do we want to adopt them at all? And I'm assuming as part of bringing that to the board, there would be a discussion as to what the rationale is for needing it.
Mhm.
I can certainly see why you would need these 3 policies.
Mhm.
It doesn't take much explanation for me to see that, I just,
Right.
for everybody else to understand that it's, you know, it's not just the wording of the policy, it's whether we want the policy at all, if it's not mandated by the state.
Yeah, and I probably, because, we do policy, so I know that the codes work that way, and also if you look at the, document that's been linked with you, at the very top, it does say recommended. So.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, if I could I think our discussion too, if you remember, I'm sure, we started looking at what we thought might already be, for instance, the one about escalation of complaints. I says, well, there's gotta be a policy on that, because everybody tells me, shut anything down if anybody comes to you publicly, and I'm saying, so I'd like to see the policy on that. So, we seem to not have it.
And so,
It's kind of a thing that it should be in place, or we feel like, we say, security cameras are here, we should tell people about it. So.
And really, we have a number of procedures, correct me if I'm wrong here, we have a number of procedures that are not covered by policy. And the idea is that to support those procedures, we should have a policy in place. To say, this is the policy that this procedure is based on, or that supports this procedure. Because I'm sure that there is a procedure in place if someone comes in and says, you need to fire teacher X, and the response is, here's the procedure for how you make a complaint against that teacher, but we don't have a policy that supports those procedures, and that's what we were trying to do.
Yep.
Right. Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions? So this is listed, as Linda just reminded me, under action items, so I'm gonna hold that motion until we get down there, because obviously we're gonna table it.
Okay.
Let's hold it there. Thank you, Linda. Enrollment report.
Sure, I will speak to that. So we have our 6th semester average, which we get from the state, and that is 135.54. That's FTE. And we will not be getting to that number in the spring right now. We still are in the add drop period right now, so it's a little bit early to present on these numbers. I don't have anything yet from Virgins, for instance, so our 2 instructors that are up there, what we know is that their numbers will go up from the fall. We've been promised that piece as far as no middle school classes. So in the fall, we had 16 FTE up there, so we will expect for that to go up. To find some good news in all of this, over the last 6 semesters, we did have a dip in spring of '22, where we were down to just over 118. We'll beat that, so we'll be above that one. Our second lowest was 129. I'm thinking that it's possible. We're at, in-house right now at main campus, we're at 105. So depending on what happens in the next couple of weeks with the add drop period. We're always lower in the spring than we are in the fall. That always happens, so we expect that. We continue to work very diligently on enrollment issues, lots of communication with our sending schools, literally calling counselors up, do you have anyone who wants to take culinary? Send them, that's a full day program, so they actually just switched. I do have some interesting data. The AOE has 2023 enrollment numbers by district and by schools. So it's kind of interesting to see, for instance, that Middlebury High School has 146 10th graders, and we have 24 of those coming here to the center. Mount Abe, they have 107 ninth graders, and we have 16 of those ninth graders. So, you know, there's some interesting data that we are going to be able to use now moving forward when we try to have these conversations with our sending schools about how we can increase enrollment and get rid of these barriers. I do have a handout here if you want to take it and look at it. It's fun to go through these numbers. I like that part. It does take a while, but it will be some interesting reading. Any particular questions about enrollment?
Anybody want a sheet?
I do.
have one?
You can take one and pass it on if you'd like.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Get it eventually. Thank you.
Can it be emailed?
Yes, sure can.
Yeah, Wendy, just thank you for working so hard on these numbers and trying to increase them. And
Yeah.
anybody else, I know there's many people working on that,
Mhm.
Well, I think too with recent, and I'll say it, with recent staff changes, responsibilities have moved to the administration office, and that can be quite cumbersome. But they have good relationships with the sending schools, and I think that's the key piece. Wendy, what kind of obstacles are we still looking at? I mean, I've had this conversation for the last 15 years with,
Well, it's always gonna be around the schedule, but,
Okay.
you know, we're kind of stuck in what we have because they're coming from too many different places. But also, credits. You know, you have to get so many credits and the graduation requirements. So that seems to make it hard for some students to be able to get here. I think some students want to remain at their high school, especially in, you know, their senior year. That's kind of important to some students. We would like to change that narrative, and we are really working on our branding here. Just, you know, even the renovation itself, and we've got our sweatshirts now, and we're wearing those on Friday, and we want, you know, people to come here and feel like this is, we're our own thing here, we're special here, and so we're hoping that they'll want to come here just to experience all these great opportunities.
I just recently had some feedback from a parent that, and I was asking, is your son gonna go to Hannaford? Because they've come here and toured and seen it, and the response was probably not, because he needs to take AP courses. So there's kind of another stumbling block, that students that really would love to be here, but they also are really needing to take AP classes for various reasons,
And in
we
some
might
cases,
address that, but yeah.
yeah, we aren't sure if students and parents know enough to be able to advocate for themselves. So that's one of we're talking about, you know, doing some mailings, and we really hope that we can get the word out there and show them the different programs that they can take down here. I think that's gonna really help too.
Judd?
I appreciate the idea of the mailings because now that my kids are this age, I'm hearing them all the time, similar to the AP, but we have the International Baccalaureate program here. And for those students who are on the diploma program, it's very hard to fit in, and even some of them who would love to be in here, but it sounds like potentially if Eric is able to make this English class work, it sounds like the English is a big hang-up, but actually a flyer that would tell parents how to explain this stuff could be really helpful, because I'm lost when they talk about their A days and their B days and what credits. I'm no help at how to navigate that, so.
Glad to hear you say that, because I'm trying to understand. So bringing English here would free them up from having to take it at their
Possibly. I'm not gonna say I have,
Yeah,
it's very tricky.
Because, you know, you got a technical school offering English, I understand that, but it's in order to make up for them inability to do it at the sending school. I'm asking the naive question, as I try to understand what.
For example, culinary is an all-day program,
Okay.
okay? If you're coming here and you have to have 4 credits, that's a credit per year, right?
Right.
Where do you get that English credit?
Okay.
So it's dilemmas like that. I mean, that's just an example.
That's one example, sure,
So-
yeah.
Right, that's a great example, and my daughter's boyfriend is another example. He's IB and is, you know, on the higher education levels, and he would love to do the ART program, but there's not a way for him to schedule both of those to stay on that track and do the theater, so.
Wow, okay, okay.
Yeah, and the IBDP program,
you know,
there really is
Very
no
hard.
room.
There's no room.
But that's only, I think,
That's
it's under 10%
Yes. it's
of the
not-
students. So there's a lot more students that could come
Yep.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that note, February 1st, open house. They've been blasting it on Facebook, thank goodness. And if you do have that, take the opportunity to share it. And you want to talk about that a little bit, or planning stages still?
We have committees that are working on the various events, like the breakfast this morning, and we'll have the open house. We are going to do our 8th grade visits coming up, and I have a little incentive for the 8th graders to take home a ticket, and if they bring it back to open house, they're gonna get entered into a drawing, which I haven't run by my boss yet, but
It'd be a really great something.
and so, you know, we're just trying to get as many people in the building as we can. We're doing, I believe it's daily Facebook, all social media, actually, LinkedIn, Twitter, posts to just highlight some of our programs. There was a nice one the other day highlighting North Campus, because sometimes, you know, that's a little tricky where sometimes they feel left out, and so it was a good one to just say, come and see these 3 programs. We'll have our door prizes like we usually do. Culinary will put on a big spread. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it, and spread the word.
Is that in the evening that day?
4:30 to 6:30 on
The
February
first?
1st. Which I think is a little early this year, but it actually works out good. It's the night of Middlebury's 8th grade, or going into 9th grade, I believe. And that follows, it actually is kind of after that. So we're hoping to get a whole bunch of people in here and then go up there. And we have a crew that will be going up there as well.
And the fall open house was well attended.
It was, yeah.
Those campuses.
Yep, yes, for sure.
Any questions? Alrighty, so next, it's listed as a 24-25 budget, which is a statutory requirement, and below that is the warning that also accompanies that, so I don't have it in front of me, the actual warning itself.
The warning is linked in the agenda.
It's in the agenda. It's in the
It's
packet here.
It's in the packet.
End of
It's
it?
after the policies. After the policies.
Thank you. So we had a conversation with Linda as we came in regards to the way this is designed and set up, and it's changed through the years, unfortunately. So the one we looked at, obviously, was this past year. And for new people, we have a moderator who will be Jim Douglas. He'll come in and run the meeting. Most of the articles that you can see are discussion, because the actual vote takes place at the sending institutions under Australian ballot. The other question that's come up is, because Lincoln has seceded from the Union at Mount Abe, I guess that's the word for it, and we've sent some information out, trying to get some answers before we post ours, to see whether or not they should be included in this particular document in the warning, but we've not got a response from that. So if there is a change, obviously that will be whether or not they are included. We're not going to include them tonight. I don't know, Nicole, if you want to add the technical piece of it that you
Right,
found out so
so
far.
I actually emailed our legal team, and the legal team did their research and determined that Lincoln should not be included, because the the school districts are included, not the towns. So the towns that are listed here are under the districts, but actually we warn to the districts, not to the towns. Just to cover ourselves, the legal team has also emailed Secretary of State and AOE to make sure that we're not missing something. But absent a response from AOE or Secretary of State directing us otherwise, based on legal advice, we have taken Lincoln off the warning. If the board should choose to pass the warning, it would be helpful if you said in your motion that if it turns out Lincoln needs to be in there, then I have the authority to add it. Because then we wouldn't have to have a second board meeting.
Okay, any questions on all of that? So,
I'm wondering,
Go ahead, Steve.
I'm wondering if it begs the question whether we should list any of these towns. Why don't we just list the member districts?
That is a really good question. This is my first time with this whole process.
Doesn't it have to be vote, the warning has to be, every town needs to get the
right.
warning for the
Yes.
vote.
Patrice has to send it to the town clerks, so that may be why it's,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the towns vote, the district doesn't.
the towns are the voters.
Voters, yes.
Right,
That's
and-
right.
That
and
makes
the-
sense. Why-
Right, and the elections happen in the towns
Yes.
through the
Individually.
auspices of their
Individually.
town offices, not
Right,
through
the
the
clerks.
school districts.
So my question was on funding. So that if we do get a student from Lincoln that comes here, they're obviously allowed to do that. And Rebecca, you indicated in the past that you bill whatever district they were coming from at the time, which has since changed, which had been Mount Abe, and you were paid. So whether or not they approach the Lincoln district, you know, we don't have that information, but that was my question. Did we get the money? Yes, we
This
did.
year, when we sent out the assessments, we were advised that Lincoln was to get their own assessment. And I'm not sure where it landed with Mount Abraham, but I believe that they ended up paying that assessment. They worked it out between the two of them. All I know is that we're full, we're made whole, so
Okay, good.
they can battle it out over there.
Any other questions,
Well,
Steve?
Lincoln's paying tuition for kids that are going to Mount Abe.
Right.
Right, but like, say for
So
instance.
I'm assuming that Mount Abe is paying the Hannaford Center through that tuition payment.
So my experience in the past has been, Steve, and it's the same with other districts that we're working with here, like Slate Valley. They have students that have chosen, that live in Orwell, that choose to go to Middlebury. And they pay Middlebury tuition. But
Yeah.
the tuition for the CTE still comes from Slate Valley. So it's two separate tuitions,
What about Otter Valley people?
same thing.
Same thing?
Mhm.
Makes sense.
Any other questions?
No, it's just interesting because I would think that Mount Abe would be setting the tuition for the Lincoln students, given the expense that they bear from supporting the Career Center, by having the Career Center tuition in their budget. Interesting that there's a separate payment made after that. Anyway, we don't need to dive into that.
Thank you. Nick,
So are we on the warning now, or?
first we'll do the budget. We'll set the
Okay.
amount for the budget, and then we'll move to the warning, which is
Okay.
right after. Okay.
Because,
So this is under discussion, and again, if you'll notice under action items, it's included down there as when we will make the motion to approve the budget. But we also have to approve the warning itself, and that's not listed under that. So we're going to have.
it's listed.
It's
it
like-
is.
this is in
It
both
is.
places.
Very bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in both places.
Anyway, thank you all.
So I have a couple questions
Go
about
ahead.
warnings, but
I'll wait till you're ready. You're still
Okay,
talking
thank you.
I have a question on the warning too.
So, go ahead and ask your question, Linda, on the warning, because we're not gonna vote on it yet. Excuse me?
I thought you were still talking budget, that's why I said I'd wait.
We have budgeted the conversation to death. We're not gonna, you know, again, if anybody has a question about it, we're not gonna vote on it until this next section in here. Any other questions on the budget? Nick? No?
But on the warning discussion,
Yes.
I don't think the board has still seen the 6-semester trailing average. I mean, these numbers are great, but there's a formula for the 6, and we haven't seen that yet.
You would like to see that, is that what you're
Well,
saying?
we've got it in the warning, yes, I think we should have seen it, we should see it.
What questions do you have about it?
Well, I haven't seen it. The 6, it shows each year the number of students.
So we have a document from the state that they send out every year, and it's not frozen yet. So that's why we haven't really published it, because it's not set in stone yet. But I have a preliminary one.
We asked about it today at a meeting with AOE, and they're getting back to us on when we'll get that, when it will be frozen.
Because we need those numbers to.
You're using the projection number here?
I'm using the most recent sheet that they have given us, because once again, we have to base it based on the
Right.
information we have at hand. We had to send the tuition, announce tuition in on Tuesday, so we had to use that number.
And what is that number?
So, can we see the numbers?
I don't have it in a document to share right now. It's a huge pivot table that the state has sent that we haven't disseminated from, but I can tell you what the numbers are for the semesters. It goes back to the, I think Wendy alluded to some of these numbers. So in the spring of '21, it was 118.26. First semester of '22 was 146.6. Second semester of '22 was 135.42. First semester of '23 was 148.34. Second semester of '23 was 136.33. And the number that they're holding for us right now is 129.4 for the fall semester.
Okay, thanks. So the number that dropped off, the first number,
Remember the discussion we had about the classes at our partner school? That's the problem.
yeah. No, I understand. But the number, the 7th,
Oh, I don't have that in the spreadsheet.
you don't have that one in there? Okay,
I'm just using what the state has provided us as an estimate.
okay. Because in previous years, we had there was a spreadsheet that we looked at 2 or 3 times.
Any other questions? Is that a format we'd like to see in the future?
I think so. I think that's the basis of the per pupil, per student calculation, so the board should see it.
Like I said,
Even if it's a projection.
right, I just think, you know, we're hearing that it's not set in stone yet, that makes it difficult, because it, like you said, it's constantly evolving and changing.
But it always has in the past.
Right, and if
And
we're
for the
okay,
8
you
years,
know.
I think we've been watching. See?
Well, and I think maybe for newer members, it might give them an idea of how complicated that process is. Bill?
So are these the readjusted numbers with the Virgin's issue pulled out?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Jen's out. It's the adjustment.
The, what Becca
Correct.
just read.
The fact that Virgin's was counting
Yeah.
people the
fall
wrong way.
semester, the
Well,
129.4.
That's why we dropped to 129.
Okay.
Right, we had to pull those kids out of the number.
Okay.
Yeah. Because
And that,
before,
yeah, that's where, that will go up this
Okay.
semester.
before Nicole, you were thinking of 138, right, 140.
Well, when we didn't know they were middle school kids, yeah.
I mean, this isn't unique to us, right? Every school district is in the same boat. We're all projecting our pupil number, right?
Yeah.
And making our best guess estimate, so we all are looking at a number when we do this.
Yeah, the numbers are coming out slower this year. There's been
Yeah,
a lot of change done with the AOE. Brad James
Yeah.
is no longer there.
Yeah.
And with the new funding formula, there's so many other moving parts for other districts that this has kind of fallen by the wayside for them this year.
Yeah. I mean, you can't be more uncomfortable than trying to make a prediction on a number that
No.
doesn't exist yet.
Right.
You know, and you
So-
have to like do it
Well,
no matter what, so.
Yeah,
Because
but
we all
there's
have to warn
the
our
state
budgets,
part,
you know,
and then
and
there's our part.
so it doesn't make too much sense,
Yeah,
but
no,
this
it's-
is what
well-
we have to do.
Yeah, any other questions? See discussion over here. Dan, Bill?
No,
Dan?
I just divided 5,279,797 by 129.4 and came up with $40,802.
You have to back out
That's
the
not-
other
yeah, it's-
revenues.
There's a
Self-support
formula.
grant.
Okay,
There's a
well,
formula.
There was a slide she
you
had.
give me
There's a
three
slide.
numbers, you give me three numbers, I'm gonna divide it. So,
There's revenue too.
you shouldn't give me a calculator.
That's why there's a
Turn it over,
slide. I wouldn't want to come with a $40,000 number to you tonight.
Well, that's, yeah.
Okay, so the budget, we will set the numbers and vote on that in the next section. You have a question about the budget? Or should we move? Okay, so now we're gonna move to the warning, and Linda, go ahead.
Okay, so my question is, if you look at Article 4, it says that there's some fund balance. It's not telling me what year, what fiscal year that fund balance is from. I think that should be in that. So it should read that there's fund balance of FY, whatever it is, will be going in as revenue in the 24-25.
We can make that adjustment be fiscal year '23.
Okay. So make that change.
And my other thing is, since Nick is getting done, is there does the member at large get elected at the Hannaford's annual meeting, or does he get elected at an ACSD meeting? Because technically it's not a board member, it's a member at large, and I believe he gets nominated at this annual meeting. That's my question, is whether it's.
No idea.
That's where I.
It's
We've
at
done
the
it.
district. It's
Yeah.
at the
We
district.
do
I think
it,
it's
we do
Excuse
it,
me,
town
wait a
meeting
minute,
that
wait a
I-
minute, wait a
yeah.
minute. Steve, go ahead.
we do it at night during our reorganization meeting.
That's correct.
But it's not an ACSD board member that's being elected to this board, it's someone
But
outside of the board.
I think they have to approve it.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, if
Huh?
it had happened
I
at
think
this
they
meeting
approved
or
me.
ACSD.
It was
Right, it goes
proposed,
back to the Sunday school.
it was proposed and accepted.
As Steve said, my position is the same way. It goes at their annual meeting, the Sunday school's annual meeting, it's determined, whether there's a reappointment or a new
And that's
person.
why I'm asking, because it's not on their
It's not on
warning
theirs.
either.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other questions? Good ones, thank you, Linda.
Mhm.
Do we have enough information on where the meeting is? It says school, time and date, good enough? Is it in 208? Will it be here?
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess we can find our way here.
Okay.
And just for your information, historically, the most there's ever been at a Hannaford meeting is 20 people, and that includes the board.
That's true. It's not
Since
widely
way
attended.
back.
Anyway, that's right.
It's
It's
really
way
difficult
back.
to get people here from 17 or
Wait until they see
16
the tax
towns.
bill. Yeah, okay.
But Jim Douglas is an ex-governor and he likes to
It goes
make
very
sure we
quickly.
realize what was,
Well, he goes quickly, he knows his job.
yeah.
That's why he's great to do that. Any other questions about the warning? Again, we'll approve it in the next section of the.
The only other thing is that the moderator, treasurer, and need to be nominated from the floor at that annual meeting.
Right.
Okay.
So if we have some change that's suggested, I don't know if Jane's gonna,
Yeah, I've got a determination for her, I know she's
she
moving
may
at
have
some
somebody that
point.
she recommends or whatever. And at that point, when the moderator is approved, they take over the meeting from that point on. Clerk position, same person interested.
Yes. It's Linda.
So we got that verified right here. Okay, thank you.
It helps you to know I'm giving up the ACSD piece. I'm not gonna do that one.
Because you love this more than we
I
know you
do
do.
love this
I know you do. Thank you.
We love you too.
Thank you, Linda. Do appreciate your longevity and historical influence. Much appreciated, very much appreciated. New programs, some exciting news.
All right, so in line with working on improving.
Are we missing the internal controls checklist?
Oh, yep.
Are we?
So this is an annual requirement from the AOE. It's a survey that's filled out just to inform the board of practices within the organization. I prepare it by the end of December, and then the board, someone from the board within 2 months needs to sign off on it. And nothing really has changed from last year, except that we have tightened up our procedures now that we're starting to get people in place and things of that nature. So it's there for review, and we bring it back next month for action to be accepted.
Questions? Steve, a question?
No, I always have a little bit of an issue with this checklist when it comes up, because there needs to be a cheat sheet that comes with it that says, when you answer yes or no to some of these questions, is that a good answer or a bad answer? It's hard to tell, because there's nothing, that an uneducated person knows nothing about these controls.
It's also reviewed by the auditing firm, and they would make note of that in their audit.
Steve?
I mean, it's just a little beef for me, just because, we get to look at it and theoretically sign off on it, but we don't know anything about it.
Steve, for next year, we could certainly do a side-by-side document that said something like, the preferred answer is,
They're
you know.
recommended, yeah, really.
So that you knew if we had one that was marked other than preferred, would that?
Yeah, it's on the Mount Abe to-do list too, so.
Okay.
Because we get the same one over there.
Okay. We'll take that for action.
Yeah, what is best practice or something like that. And if we don't, then I guess we could ask why.
Any other questions? So that's a recommendation for next year. So noted. Anyway. Okay, we're getting there, folks. We're a little behind, but not bad. And new programs for 2024 to 2025.
So based on input from community workforce development, our stakeholder groups, our advisory boards, our counselors, our principals, and the kids, we are going to try and run plumbing, electrical, and welding as standalone as programs. Plumbing and electrical would be one program. Welding would be a second program. We have written the job descriptions, the course descriptions. We have added them to our course book. We have applied to offer the programs through AOE. Those are all a bunch of ifs. AOE could deny us. We could not have enough enrollment. We could not find an instructor, right? So there are a lot of ifs. But if all the stars are aligned and we have the enrollment, we will be able to offer plumbing and electrical and welding starting in fall. So this is just information for you at this point, because I don't have enough to ask you a question, really. We're gonna put it out there and see what we get. AOE has been very encouraging. These are high wage, high demand jobs that have been asked for by workforce development, and everybody you know needs a plumber and electrician. So I don't think it's a kind of a no-brainer. Welders, we get calls often if we have any graduates from our welding program. Our adult education welding programs are full. These are programs that we would really like to offer. So we're going to put them out there and see who enrolls, and if AOE gives us the go-ahead. If we do get the go-ahead, our current instructor, Hayden Thompson, is interested in teaching the plumbing and electrical, and we would love to have that happen. And we have a person currently who is very interested in being our welding instructor, who is working in that role in other places. So we're very hopeful and excited, and we just need to see if we get the enrollment.
And this will be during the day, this isn't adult ed or anything?
This is our regular 9-12 program.
Cool. Can we do a press release before people vote on our budget?
Not until we get approval from AOE.
I know. I'm just being hopeful.
Yeah. You said that this is 9 through 12, but I think earlier there was something about some restrictions on ninth graders and 10th
correct.
graders.
I misspoke. These would be technical programs.
Okay,
So they would be mostly 11th and 10th grade, 11th and 12th graders, and some 10th graders would be eligible.
Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good
Is
work.
there a restriction based on age?
Yes, technical programs, you can only, it's a Vermont thing. You can only take them if you're an 11th or 12th grader or a special 10th grader.
What is a special time?
Mature and on track.
Very good.
When do you expect to hear from AOE?
The application has not gone in yet. We have to find out what the enrollment is gonna be, so we need to, you know, we have a lot of other things that we're working on, the curriculum development and several other things, but in the meantime, as applications come in, you know, we would love to be able to say, we've already got, you know, a full program here.
It's a very interesting process here in the state that you have to already have the kids enrolled before they will let you have the program. So if you get it or don't get it, then you have a bunch of disappointed kids. So, but whatever, we'll follow the rules and we'll make it happen. Yeah.
We will need, as part of this process, the okay, you know, and encouragement by the board.
Right.
So, you know, it's not on for an action item, but I guess we should probably do that for the next.
Could maybe jumping the gun, but is there any feedback from local practices for plumbing and electrical? Because, I mean,
We haven't,
we all know you try to get a plumber out here, and so these guys are all screaming, I can't get any help.
right,
So,
one of the first steps is obviously just bringing it here,
Yeah.
because if I was, for any reason, getting significant pushback, right, I haven't advertised, I've told the staff, and we've told our ascending school counselors that to expect to see it in the course description by, but just in case the board had any problems or pushback, we haven't disseminated this widely yet.
okay.
Right.
No, it's interesting. You know, you wanna keep the kids in Vermont, you wanna keep them employed, that's one of the ways to do it.
Yes.
So do you need like a vote of confidence today?
We will bring you an official action at the February meeting,
Okay.
because by then we hope to have some inkling of enrollment, maybe.
Mhm.
Well, we should.
Is 8 the magic number, or is it higher?
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Because what we also know is it's not just who applies, it's who actually ends up signing up.
Yeah.
Because all the barriers that happen, that not every kid signs up that applied.
I thought welding was 6.
They,
English class.
Not 8.
Here in plumbing.
it's, that's a different discussion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm happy to do that, that's just a long,
Okay.
it's a long thing. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Exciting news, thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
Good work.
So moving into the action agenda, I'm gonna take each one of these, with the exception of the warnings, which we'll do together, I think, to table those. First one, I need a motion to accept the donations that were listed above and discussed.
So move.
Second.
Do you need what the donations are, Linda, for that motion?
I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Actually, did I get a second? I apologize.
I did.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Bill, a second. All those in favor of accepting the donations?
Yep.
Please raise your hand or say aye. Thank you. Anybody opposed to that? Any abstentions? Seeing none, motion passes. So this next one, approval or resignation of board member. Nick has sent an email to Nicole and I indicating what he's going to do. Obviously, you need to let
I have.
sending school know. Okay, great.
I spoke to them first.
Okay, thank you. So,
What happens if we don't make this motion?
yeah.
That's fine, I'll stay for another 9 years.
We'll let you, we'll let you go. So I need a motion to accept Nick's resignation.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Oh.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jen. Okay.
You can always reconsider.
Yeah, always reconsider.
I've enjoyed it,
And reapply, exactly.
but 2 more meetings.
All those in favor of accepting that motion?
Aye.
Say aye.
Yeah.
Anybody opposed to it? Yes, I am.
Was it really 9 years, Nick?
Yeah,
Pretty
9 years.
well.
Wow, nice work.
And motion is accepted with much regret.
10 years, you get a prize.
So approval of the budget for, and this is obviously a statutory piece, for 2024, 25. Accept a motion for someone to, okay, Bill, I can't see you, sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna say Bill. And Bill, do you need him to read that?
I need a second, yeah, he needs to state his motion.
I'll second.
And Christina said she'll second it after you read that.
Do you need to say no, or?
You need the amount, correct?
Yeah.
Or just, how about that whole statement? Article
Where is
6,
the
do you want that, or
statement? Right there.
want to just put that down? He's just gonna put down Article 6.
Okay, that's fine.
So go after the, let's see, where's the, after the policies in the packet, a little farther down.
All right,
So she's gonna list that whole
okay.
in the minutes.
So you want me to read the whole thing?
You
Please.
want me to?
I can do that. Shall the voters, what?
You don't.
You have to, okay.
Did you vote?
You do need to vote.
Yes, we do. Okay.
Yeah.
So the motion is to approve the 2024-25 budget that's listed in the warning. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody, on that. Next action item is the warning. And we have some changes that Linda's recommended. And the only other addition which may occur is the
Lincoln.
our relationship with Lincoln. And until we hear otherwise, they will not be on the warrant, but I need permission in this motion to allow Nicole to change it if needed. So I need someone to,
And you said you've already gotten legal feedback?
Steve's making a motion. Thank you, Steve. You okay with that, Linda? Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Sharon?
You didn't do the other edit Article 4. Needs to be included in
The change. We need that changed.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
there. If she's
Yeah.
gonna.
Yeah, the motion is as amended by the earlier discussion.
Are you gonna amend it?
Yes, that's what the motion was. I thought that's what
So
you
you,
said.
so your motion is
Okay.
to amend Article 4, is that correct?
No, my motion is to approve the warning for the annual meeting
Okay.
as amended by the earlier discussion, and to include permission for Nicole to modify the warning based on legal discussions regarding Lincoln.
And the other change is to add the year as follows.
The year of the fund balance.
Just the fiscal year of the
Fund balance.
surplus.
Any questions on that? You guys are okay with that? Okay. All righty, we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, any questions, conversation about that? Everybody's clear about all the little twinkie parts that we have on it?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor? This motion that stands with the amendment?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you.
Could it be recirculated once it's?
Yes.
Yes.
So that will happen with, obviously, the two changes, but, and hopefully we'll get some input, legal input.
And also the 6 month in real numbers.
Yes.
And it needs to get done soon because posting dates.
We have to, we have to warn it before the end of this month, but
Before the 20th.
if I don't hear from the lawyers within a week, we're just gonna go with it. But they already gave us legal opinion. Their legal opinion is that Lincoln should not be on there. They're just doing a CYA to Secretary of State.
Clarify.
Okay.
So the next motion was presented earlier. Steve? you want to
I'll
start?
restate it. I move that we table the approval of the second reading of policies A21, B22, and F26 until finalized language can be posted.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Questions? All set? Pretty clear? Thank you. Anyway, all those in favor of that motion? Please
Aye.
express
Aye.
your opinion. Thank you. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion passes. Thank you. And the last piece that we need to approve is the operating agreements for the Makery and the Teen Makery that were presented earlier by David.
So,
So that's a
So-
motion?
Yep.
Just a motion, and Nick was second, Linda? Okay. All those in favor of that motion, please express by saying aye. Raising your
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Thank you. Anybody opposed to that motion? Motion passes. Thank you. Any other comments from anybody?
We have public comment section.
Thank you. When is the 8th grade visit? When are they starting?
They're 23rd,
Yeah.
24th.
So before open house?
Two of them will be, one won't. Virgin's one.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wondered on that time.
Yep.
Also to get that information. Any other questions from anybody? Looking at the end. Policy 4.1.
Do we do public comment?
Well, she doesn't have any.
Okay.
Just have it.
Who's online?
Everybody's on
This
line.
young lady is that's Wendy's daughter.
Gesundheit.
Okay, great. Sorry.
She's on that, yeah,
Okay.
she's been on. Keeping
She's
an
a
eye on
trooper.
us. All right, on that note, no, there isn't, unless anybody else from the board has a comment that they didn't get a chance to share earlier. All right. So policy 4.1, governing style, I apologize if I skipped over something, my handwriting is a little large, but anybody would like to address that on the board level?
I have a comment. It's interesting that it just seems like we've started doing this recently, where we have sort of broken up a single topic into a presentation section, then its discussion follows later in the meeting in a separate section, and then it's then acted on in another section even later in the meeting. And I don't know where this format came from, but it doesn't seem to follow normal Robert's rules. And I don't know how people feel about it, but it tends to break up, it seems to be a little awkward. Where typically, at most board meetings I've been to, if there needs to be explanatory information brought on a topic, that's done. And then it's actually acted upon so that the motion is brought to the table Robert's rules say you bring the motion first, then you discuss. So the discussion happens between the motion being made and the action actually being either approved or denied. We're kind of breaking up that normal Robert's rules procedure by spreading it out over 3 different sections of the meeting. And if somebody in the public has a particular interest in one of these topics, they have to sort of wait for 3 separate sections of the meeting to follow what's going on. So that's just my kind of feedback for the way this is going. I don't know how everybody else feels about it.
I think part of it, Steve, is that there are some things that we're listening to for discussion that do not need action. Or there, for instance, the new programs that are being introduced. So.
Oh yeah, I understand that there's a reason to have a discussion section separate from an action agenda.
Mm-hmm.
But something that we're discussing that we're going to act on, I believe, should just be under the action agenda, including the presentation of the original explanatory information, the motion itself, the discussion about the motion, and then the vote. I think all of that should be under the action agenda. If there's something we're just discussing for the sake of discussing it, that just goes under discussion. And if we're getting a presentation that doesn't require discussion or doesn't require action, that certainly can go under the presentation section. But to have something that ends up under all 3 of them, I think is a little awkward.
Nick?
Typically, that's the way we've always done it in the past.
I don't recall that.
Making a motion, then discussion.
Yeah, making a motion and then discussing it.
And then taking a vote, all together.
Yeah.
Right, but he's talking about the way it's broken up.
Yeah, so Steve's right, that this is a slightly new order.
And I think we end up kind of duplicating some of the discussion, I think, when this happens. And we get a little bit confused as to where we are in the process.
Any other input from anybody? My apologies if it gets confusing, because it is also confusing for me, as you can tell.
But, yeah, I'm trying to be helpful here. I'm not trying to.
Yeah, no,
I get it. No, we understand that. Thank you, Steve. Any other feedback things regarding the meeting itself?
So Steve, may I ask a clarifying question, just so that my team can make sure to try to help here? So,
yep.
For example, let's take the makery presentation. So,
yep.
Is the board's preference then that it would be only listed once under action item, and then would have both a presentation, a discussion, and an action, but it would only be listed once in the agenda under action item?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I understand now.
Yeah, the very first thing you want to determine is whether or not the board needs to take action.
Okay.
Because that has to be warned. And anything that has an action to be taken on it can have 3 components. That's not a problem. But it would all happen at once. You present, you make a motion, then you would entertain a motion, and then board members could discuss their preference or amendments or anything else they wanted to do to the motion after the motion's made. And then once we've settled on whether nobody has any more comments or the amendments have been discussed, then you take the vote.
And this is probably me, because this is West Coast process. So this is, I probably just did that based on habit. So I will simplify.
All right.
Where I've come from before, you have to do it in 3 separate actions. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not hoping everybody's just,
nope.
You're doing that just to please me here. I'm hoping everybody's either on the same page or not.
Yeah, it's a little clunky.
Yeah.
You got
I
it.
think it would
Okay.
be
There was also
easier
a lot
to
of
follow
material
where
to
we're
cover
at.
tonight.
Yeah,
We covered a lot of stuff, and then with any duplication, it just pushes that out further.
Yeah.
you got it.
And I don't think it's unusual to have a presentation and then you take action at the end. I
Right.
mean, or have it, yeah. Our school board does.
Yeah, if there's any action to be taken on the topic at all, then it goes in the action agenda. If there's no action, then it goes into discussion, and if it's just a presentation, then that's all it is.
Hopefully that helps a little.
Kim and I will do our very best for February.
That's tight. That's tight.
And we're gonna send it to you, Steve.
Yeah, and I would love to request links on everything,
Excuse me, I'm sorry, what did you say?
links on everything in the agenda.
Oh,
because
yeah.
A lot of stuff wasn't
Yeah,
linked
some of
this
them don't
time.
work for me. I wasn't authorized a number of times to.
That maybe, and I finally figured it out. You probably have multiple email accounts in your Google.
Yeah, but I go to the PAHCC.
Oh, okay.
I
Sorry,
tried, well, I
there's-
tried both, you're right. No, I tried
That
both.
one has tripped me up,
No.
and then I realized, oh, I'm just signed in under the wrong thing, and then once I sign in, then it gives me access.
Yeah, I get an auto
Okay.
forward, but then I go to
Okay,
PAHCC
super.
because I was getting bumped
I was
up
hoping I
all
had
the
your
time
answer for
before.
you.
Yeah.
As a member of the public, I actually tried to look at the links yesterday, and the only one where I couldn't access anything. So they worked fine today, so I'm not sure what the difference was, but I did try to look at the stuff ahead of time, and I wasn't able to do that.
Okay. I mean, you think I didn't do my homework, but I tried.
My dog ate mine.
The dog ate it. The dog ate my link.
On that note, we are ahead of schedule, even with this crazy agenda.
Okay.
Anyway, and I needed a motion to go into executive session.
You have not done policy platform yet.
I'll take that. A-OK on
We had a lot of
policy
discussion
governing
on
style
it.
tonight. We're ahead of schedule.
Thank you.
Good job, everybody. Good discussion, good presentations.
And we will attack the agenda.
Did we approve it? Did we approve it?
Yes, we
Oh,
did.
sorry, I missed it.
Yes, we didn't want to wake
Is
you up.
that good,
Ken.
Linda? Okay, perfect.
Are we all set, Linda, now? Thank you. So now I need a motion to go into executive session. Thank
So moved.
Oh, we'll get Nick that one. It's your last one, right?
No, next one. I'm gonna do governing style next.
All right.
you. It's ready, look
I'm
out.
out of here.
Somebody
You
wrote
got
us.
it, you got it.
A little bit more specific than that on the executive session.
You cannot just say,
Oh,
Can't just say we're going
right,
into executive session.
Sorry, I haven't got it written.
Do you need it?
Pursuant to,
Or,
Do you need the sheet
Right
there?
for negotiations.
For negotiations,
it's on the second
Yeah.
page.
Sorry, I just have to find it here.
executive session
313A2.
313A2.
Negotiations.
Negotiations.
Steve's gonna be ready to roll in a few minutes, Steve. We'll let you know when the room clears.
and who seconded that?
Thank you.
I'll second it, Sharon.
Thank you, Linda.
I got a comment to make.
Uh-oh.
I don't, it's not 313